Hello, so today we're going to go over determinate being and quality. And we're going to have a few of videos to do these sections, but this we start in determinate being with a unity of being and nothing that came out of becoming. So becoming had going from not being to being and being to not being, and we understood that you had the process of becoming, and out of that we had the unity of being and nothing. So in their unity they form a determinate being. Now this is the first step we're at, and if you look in this video, in this picture right here, it's a little bit more complicated. We have, quality, um, you are something, but you're also, I am myself, but I am also not this other person. I'm also not this house. I'm also not this tree. Um, to be myself, I also have to be different from other people. So that the unity of being and nothing splits apart, but then they'll come back together at the end. And we'll have a fuller idea of the relationship between um, something and another, or being and nothing, after this than we before. So contradictions in Hegel, like I want to say, they lead to a fuller understanding as we synthesize and we broaden our view of things. So to begin with, Hegel says it is not mere being, but determinate being, etymologically taken, being in a certain place. But the idea of space is irrelevant here. Determinate being is the result of its becoming is, in general, being with a non-being, such that this non-being is taken up into simple unity with being. Non-being thus taken up into being in such a way that the concrete whole is in the form of being, of immediacy, constitutes determinateness as such. So as I was saying, being and non-being in their unity is determinate being. Um, Before, remember, abstract being was all being. Determinate being is being that also is not other things. So um, we'll see that it moves away, but it's being, but it's not just abstract pure being, it's a certain being, a specific being. Determinate being corresponds to being in the previous sphere, but being is indeterminate and therefore no determinations issue from it. Determinate being, however, is concrete. Consequently, a number of determinations, distinct relations of its moments, make their appearance in it. So, like I was saying, in being in general, abstract being, I'm being, you're being, the table's being, the tree's being, all of this stuff is being. Being in itself doesn't tell us anything specific about something. It's probably the broadest term we have in our language. So determinate being, however, it's concrete, it's specific, um, and there are relations to different things in it, as we will see. So determinateness, so he goes on. So remember, now being and nothing are in a unity here. But determinateness, thus isolated by itself in the form of being, is quality, which is wholly simple and immediate. Determinateness as such is the more universal term, which can equally be further determined as quantity and so on. So quality is only one form of determinateness. We can also say something as quantity. So when we're determining something, we can determine it as being red, blue, purple, but we can also determine it as 1, 2, 3, or 4. And these at first are distinct moments of determinate being. So Hegel goes on, quality taken in the distinct character of being is reality. As burdened with a negative, it is negation in general, likewise a quality, but one which counts as a deficiency, and which further on is determined as limitation. So here, being and nothing were originally in a unity coming out of becoming, Now they split apart. The determinate being in quality has two aspects. It's not just being and nothing in a unity. There is what something is, and there is what something is not. And this picture in the front here, I am myself, but I'm also not the house. I'm also not the other person. I'm also not the tree, right? So it splits apart. Quality is both what something is, the reality aspect, here's reality, and it's also what it's not. And we're going to show why that is. So we have quality, what something is, the reality. So let's just say that we didn't have negation in this whole universe. We're just this white with no difference. There's no negation. This whiteness just expands infinitely. We couldn't really, there would be no quality to it. There would be nothing to distinguish it from other things, to make it different from other things. So being in nothing, instead of just being in a unity, they've split apart, and we see that there's what things are. So the white is white. But to get quality, we also need what it's not. So we have the white square, and we have the purple square, and the brown square, and the green square. And in Encyclopedia of Logic, Hegel says quality is determinateness, which is as contrasted with the negation, which is involved in it but distinguished from it, is reality. So reality is distinguished from negation at first. And negation is no longer an abstract nothing, but is a determinate being, and somewhat is only a form of such being. So, we have this white square, the white square is white, like before, but it's also not green, and it's not this lighter green, it's not this purple, it's not this brown, and it's not this blue, and it's not this yellow. So they've split apart. It's no longer being nothing in unity, but we have reality and negation. White is white, reality. White is not purple, it is not brown, it is not blue, it is not green. That's negation. But as we're going to see, that's a little bit too. These two determinations aren't permanent. We actually will come out of this and learn something more about this. So here he says determinateness is negation posited as affirmative. So and think about that, it's negation, but it's like negative being. It's not just nothing, as we've been saying. So here we're coming out, we have reality on one side, negation on the other. The white square is the white square, but it is also not the red square, not the purple square, not the blue square. Likewise, in this first frame, I am myself, but I'm also not the house. I'm not the other person. I'm not the tree. Reality here, negation here. I am not. Um, so we're coming out of that, and Hegel says in determinate being, its determinateness has been distinguished as quality. In quality is determinately present, there is distinction of reality and negation. Now, although these distinctions are present in determinate being, they are no less equally void and sublated. Reality itself contains negation in determinate being, not indeterminate abstract being. Similarly, negation is determinate being, not the supposedly abstract nothing, but posited here as it is in itself, as affirmatively present, belonging to the sphere of determinate being. Thus, quality is completely unseparated from determinate being, which is simply determinate qualitative being. And I want to pause here and think about this. So before we had the white square is white, and it's not purple, it's not brown, it's not blue, right? But we could also say this negation here, this purple, isn't just nothingness. It also purple is purple. It has a being aspect in itself. And even though from the white square's perspective, the purple is not white, purple also is purple is purple, and purple um, is not, white is not purple. So white also has this negation. Purple also has this affirmative being, this positive being. Purple is purple, white is white. Purple is not white, white is not purple. This is so we see here it's not that reality and negation are just separated from one another, that they also become one another. Reality becomes negation, negation becomes reality. And that's because both of them are beings. They're not pure being and pure nothingness. So Hegel goes on, what is therefore in fact present is determinate being in general, distinction in it, and sublation of this distinction. Determinate being not as devoid of distinction as at first, but is again equal to itself through sublation of this distinction, the simple oneness of determinate being resulting from this sublation. This sublatedness of the distinction is determinate being's own determinateness. It is thus being within self. Determinate being is a determinate being, a something. So now we have a something instead of just reality and negation. We have something. The something is both reality, purple is purple, but it is also not white. It's not. So something now, the reality and the negation um, are back to being, they're combined. So something is the negation of the negation in the form of being. For the second negation is the restoring of the simple relation to self, but with this. Something is equally the mediation of itself with itself. And so in the second step, reality and negation were separated from one another. They were distinct from one another. The first step, reality or being and nothing were united. In the second step, reality and negation split apart. This was a negation of the simple unity of being and nothing. But then reality turned into negation and negation turned into being. So this is like the negation of the negation. We're at a new step. You can think of the negation of the negation as a negative number times a negative number. They make a positive number, but they also come out of negative numbers. That's one way of thinking about it. So we have something that's come out of this. And here's a good example of something. I am someone. Let's switch something with someone. I am someone, and she is someone, right? I have this aspect of reality. I am David, but I am also not this woman right here. Let's call her Jane. I am David, but I'm not Jane. And likewise, Jane is Jane, but she's not David. So something we both have this aspect of reality, what we are, and we have this aspect of what we're not. So this mediation with itself, which something is in itself, taken only as negation of the negation, has no concrete determinations for its side. It thus collapses into the simple oneness which is being. Something is and is then also a determinate being. Further, it is in itself also becoming. So it has something something has this abstract being in it. It also is a determinate being, and it also comes out of becoming. So all these previous moments are contained in it. One of these, being, is now determinate being, and further, a determinate being. The second is equally a determinate being, but determined as a negative of something, an other. Something is a becoming is a transition, the moments of which are themselves somethings, so that the transition is an alteration, a becoming which has already become concrete. But to begin with, something alters only in its notion. It is not yet posited as mediating and mediated, but at first only as simply maintaining itself in its self-relation, and its negative is equally qualitative as only an other in general. So now, instead of just determinate being in general, and which became reality and negation. Then now we have someone or something, and we have an other. So I am David, and this is the other to me. Jane. Jane is other than David. And so this is really where we stop. But a little side note is that this term other and the dialectic of otherness is something that really has informed a lot of post-colonial scholarship. So I hope you found this video helpful and enjoy it.